I was still in the middle of unwrapping the crepe paper from a small, square gift when my mom blurted out, "Okay, everyone, clear the table. We need to make room for Kayla's cake." At first, I thought she misspoke, that it was just one of those weird mom slips, like calling the dog by your name. But no, she meant it. My name is Tyler. I had just turned 18, and my sister Kayla, who was 21, had decided she was going to redo her 18th birthday. And apparently, that meant hijacking mine. I should probably back up a bit. Growing up, I learned early that being the second child doesn't just mean hand-me-down clothes. In my house, it meant hand-me-down attention, priorities, and even milestones. Kayla was the golden child, the kind of person who could crash a car, cry about how the steering wheel felt weird, and still get comforted while Dad handed her his keys. Meanwhile, I once got grounded for bringing home a B+ in math because it was a sign I was slacking. The contrast wasn't always loud, but it was there, a steady drumbeat in the background of our family life. Small things that piled up over the years until I stopped expecting fairness and just settled for neutrality. But my 18th birthday was supposed to be different. They promised me the world. I still remember the way Mom grinned over her wine glass a few months before, telling relatives, "Oh, Tyler's turning 18. We're doing something really special. He's such a thoughtful kid. He deserves it." I didn't even ask for anything huge. I didn't want a car or a trip or some extravagant surprise. I just wanted a day, one day, that was about me, where I wouldn't be Kayla's little brother, or the afterthought, or the guy stuck loading the dishwasher while she flipped her hair and walked off. I wanted to feel like I mattered. And for a while, it seemed like I would. They let me pick the restaurant. I chose this little Italian place downtown with dim lighting, mismatched chairs, and the best mushroom ravioli I've ever had. They booked the private room, invited my friends, got a custom cake. Everything looked like it was finally going right. Even Kayla seemed oddly agreeable, which should have been my first red flag. She smiled when she arrived, late, of course, in a glittery silver dress that screamed prom queen instead of dinner guest. "Can't believe my baby brother's all grown up," she purred, giving me an air kiss while immediately turning to take selfies at the wine bar. I didn't say anything. I knew better than to poke the bear. Dinner started well enough. I had my favorite pasta. Dad even offered me a glass of wine. "Just this once, don't tell your mom." My friends gave me a pair of headphones I'd been eyeing for months, and there was this brief moment, maybe 10 minutes, where I actually felt normal. Celebrated. Like someone had seen me. That all came crashing down when the lights dimmed and a server rolled out a second cake. A giant, tiered monstrosity covered in pink frosting and edible glitter, with "Happy 18th Birthday, Kayla" scrawled across the front. It took a full 10 seconds before my brain could process what I was looking at. I blinked, looked at my mom, then at Kayla, who was already clapping her hands like a game show contestant. "I know it's technically your birthday," she laughed, "but I never got a proper party for mine, remember? The whole thing with Grandma being sick. I figured, why not make it up now?" She said it like she was doing me a favor, like it was cute, like it made sense. I glanced around the room. Some of my friends were staring at their plates. One of them, James, let out a low whistle under his breath and mouthed, "What? Wait, are you serious?" I asked, my voice coming out quieter than I meant it to. Kayla tilted her head, fake pout on full display. "Ty, don't be weird about it. We're sharing, okay? It's not that deep." But it was that deep. It was the last straw in a long line of silent sacrifices. The school plays they skipped because Kayla had a hair appointment. The holidays that revolved around her schedule. The way every argument, no matter how petty, ended with me being told to apologize. And now, even this, my milestone, my moment, was being split down the middle like a Black Friday deal. I felt the heat rush to my face, and not from embarrassment, but rage. Pure, white-hot, helpless rage. I turned to my parents. "You knew about this?" Dad looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to slide under the table. Mom gave this tight little smile, the one she used when she was pretending something wasn't a big deal. "Well, sweetheart, you did say you didn't want anything extravagant." And Kayla never really got closure on her 18th. She's 21. I snapped. She had 3 birthdays since then. She didn't feel celebrated. Mom replied, like that somehow justified everything. It was like I wasn't even a person in that moment. Just a prop in Kayla's ongoing theater of self-worship. The rest of the night was a blur. They sang for her, took photos, cut her cake. At some point, Someone asked if we were twins because of the double celebration, and Kayla laughed like it was the best thing she'd ever heard. I didn't even touch my own cake. I just sat there, surrounded by noise, feeling smaller and smaller. Later, back at home, I locked myself in my room while Kayla paraded around the living room in her heels, showing off gifts she had accidentally opened. No one knocked on my door. No one checked in. That night, I made a decision. I was done. Done playing the role of the quiet son. The one who kept the peace, who swallowed the hurt, who watched from the sidelines while Kayla took center stage. I didn't know how yet, but something in me shifted. I wasn't going to let them keep dimming my light just to let her shine brighter. And what none of them knew, not Kayla, not Mom, not even Dad, was that I had been building something quietly in the background. Something real, something of my own. And the next time they saw me, it wouldn't be in her shadow. It would be from a stage of my own making. But that part comes later. The real unraveling started 1 year after that dinner. And by then, I wasn't the same kid they had brushed aside. For the next few weeks after my hijacked birthday, I kept my head down. No dramatic speeches. No passive-aggressive texts. No revenge, not yet. I think my parents assumed I'd gotten over it. That I'd understand eventually, the way I always did. But I didn't. I just got quiet. The kind of quiet that simmers under your skin, like a low boil that never really goes away. Kayla went back to school 2 days later. She was finishing up a degree in something vague and Pinterest-worthy, digital branding or lifestyle marketing or whatever it was this semester. The only thing consistent about Kayla's college life was how often she switched majors and how fast she posted about it. And just like that, the house was quiet again. The golden child had returned to her palace of selfies and sorority brunches, and I was left in the silence she always left behind. I graduated high school that June. Valedictorian. Not that anyone in my family came to the ceremony. They said they were coming. Mom even made a big deal of buying a new blouse. Dad scheduled the time off. Kayla posted "so proud of my little bro, class of 20 whatever" on her Instagram story the night before. But the morning of, Kayla called in tears. Her boyfriend had broken up with her. Again, that made 5, by my count. This one had a beard and a vape business and the emotional maturity of a lawn chair. They were soulmates for 3 months and fighting like siblings for 2. And the moment he ghosted her, my mom jumped into full crisis mode. "I can't just leave her like this, Tyler. She's devastated." "I'm your son," I said quietly. "This is my graduation. She needs us more right now." That was the first time I felt something snap. Not crack. Snap. Like a rope being pulled too tight for too long. I sat there in my room, in the itchy blue gown, waiting for someone to change their mind. For my mom to call back and say she was wrong. That she was getting in the car, and they'd be there, and they'd cheer so loud the whole stadium would hear. But the phone stayed quiet. The clock ticked forward. And eventually, I had to leave. I walked across that stage alone. James was there, front row, filming it all like a proud parent. His mom even brought me flowers. She said, "I'm just so proud of you, sweetheart. I remember when you were this tall," and held her hand somewhere around my ribcage. I had to excuse myself after the ceremony so I wouldn't cry in front of her. When I got home that night, I found a card on the kitchen table. No gift, no hug, just a card with a pre-printed message and Mom's loopy handwriting. "So proud of you. You're going to do great things. Love you always. Mom and Dad." Underneath it, in smaller print, "P.S. Kayla's staying with us for a few days. Be nice." I didn't say a word. Kayla moved back into her old room like she owned the place. She cried on the couch, binge-watched trash reality shows, and used up the last of my shampoo without asking. She'd dramatically sigh every 5 minutes, then look around to see if anyone noticed. One night, I came home from a shift at the movie theater, the same one I'd been working at for over a year, quietly saving money, planning my future, and found her wearing my hoodie. Not a similar hoodie. Mine. From the college I'd just gotten accepted to. The one I'd busted my tail applying for, chasing down recommendation letters and scholarships like my life depended on it. She was curled up in it like a cat, phone in one hand, bag of chips in the other. "Kayla," I said slowly, trying to stay calm. "Can you please take that off? That's not yours." She looked up like I was being dramatic. "You're so territorial." "Chill," I was cold. "You have 10 hoodies in your closet. But this one's cozy. It's mine." She rolled her eyes and flung it toward me like it was contaminated. "God, fine. You're so touchy lately." And just like that, I was the problem again. I wish I could say that was the worst of it. It wasn't. A week later, while I was at work, Kayla borrowed my car. She didn't ask. She just took the keys from the hook, drove to some pop-up flower market with her friend Maddie, and came back with a flat tire and a story about how the curb came out of nowhere. When I asked her why she thought she could take my car, she said, "Relax, you're not even using it during the day. And you live here." My parents laughed it off. "She's your sister, Tyler. She was just trying to clear her head. Don't be so selfish." I was done, emotionally checked out. I stopped talking to any of them unless it was absolutely necessary. I ate my meals in my room. I made up extra shifts just to get out of the house. I slept with headphones in and kept my car keys in my backpack. And still, somehow, they found ways to hurt me. The real betrayal, the one that left me stunned, came on a Tuesday afternoon in July. I was sitting on the porch, scrolling through my emails, when I got the notification I'd been waiting for, a scholarship offer. Not just a scholarship, the scholarship. Full ride, housing, books, meal plan, all of it. For years of freedom, tied up with a little digital bow. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I could process it. Then I shot up from my chair, heart pounding, and ran inside. "Mom, Dad, you're not going to believe this. I got it." They were sitting at the kitchen table with Kayla, mid-discussion about some influencer retreat she wanted to attend. Mom looked up. "Got what, sweetie?" "The scholarship. The one from Hanover. They picked me. It's a full ride." For a moment, there was silence. Then Dad said, "Wow, that's great news." Mom smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's wonderful, honey. We're proud of you." "Kayla?" She didn't say anything. She just blinked. Then she asked, "Wait, does that mean you're leaving in the fall?" "Yeah. Orientation starts mid-August." Another pause. Then Kayla turned to Mom and said, "I was actually hoping to stay here for a few more months. I've been thinking of taking time off from school. Just need some space to figure things out, you know?" Mom nodded. "Of course, sweetheart. You take all the time you need." I blinked. "What does that have to do with, I mean," Kayla cut in, "if Tyler's leaving, then I could move into his room. It's bigger, better lighting for videos." I laughed. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. 2 days later, I came home to find half my stuff boxed up. My desk, my chair, my books, all stacked in the hallway like donations. Mom met me at the door. "We're just starting the transition, sweetheart. No rush. But you'll be moving soon anyway, so..." "So you decided to evict me?" "You're not being evicted. You're moving out for college. In a month." "She needs the space, Tyler." "Then maybe she shouldn't have dropped out of school." That silence, the kind that hangs heavy in the air, sticky and sharp, was the only reply I got. Later that night, I found Kayla in my chair, feet on my desk, filming a TikTok about manifesting your goals while surrounded by my books, my planner, my stuff. She paused when she saw me and said, "Don't be salty. You're going to be off having your little college adventure. Let me have this." I stared at her, at the smirk, the entitlement, the total lack of awareness. And something inside me crystallized. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. No more hoping they'd change. No more waiting for an apology that would never come. No more pretending I was part of a family that saw me as disposable. I walked back to my room, or rather, what was left of it, and stared at the scholarship email still open on my screen. Then I opened a new document. A checklist. What I needed. Where I was going. How to disappear. Completely. Without them even realizing it until it was too late. Because I wasn't just leaving for college. I was leaving for good. But I wasn't going quietly. And when Kayla found out what I'd built behind the scenes, what I'd really been working on all year, her jealousy would erupt like a firebomb. And the explosion? It would take the whole fragile house of cards down with her. Packing didn't take long. When people think of leaving home, they picture months of planning, dozens of boxes, teary goodbyes. But when the place you're leaving stopped feeling like home a long time ago, it's surprising how fast you can strip your life down to essentials. A couple suitcases, a laptop, a worn hoodie, and a fire in my gut that had been building for years. I didn't announce it. I didn't sit anyone down. I just left a sticky note on my now empty desk. "Thanks for everything. I'll let you know when I land. Tyler." And then I walked out the front door, quietly, early on a Monday morning, before Kayla could turn my bed into her filming set or my mom could offer one last guilt-laced hug. The sunrise was just barely creeping over the horizon when I pulled out of the driveway. It was the only goodbye I needed. What followed were some of the loneliest weeks of my life. Orientation week at Hanover felt like being dropped into the middle of a movie already in progress. Everyone seemed to arrive with a built-in friend group. Kids from the same high schools, roommates who had matched early, people with older siblings who gave them all the tips. I tried to smile, to blend in, but it was hard to stay present when my head was still stuck in everything I'd left behind. Most nights I sat alone in the dining hall, earphones in, tray untouched. My roommate was nice enough, an engineering major named Dev who kept his side of the room obsessively clean and fell asleep with ambient rain sounds playing at a volume that made my fillings vibrate. We coexisted like ghosts, said, "Hey," when we passed each other, made awkward small talk about the weather, then retreated to our separate corners of the room like strangers on a train. And then, 2 weeks into the semester, I got a text from my mom. "Hey, sweetie, Kayla's thinking about starting her own business. She might need your help with branding. You're so good at that stuff. Can you give her a call?" I stared at the screen for a full minute, rereading it just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. Not house school, not "we miss you," not even a "congrats again." Just another request to make Kayla's dreams a reality. I didn't reply. That night, I hit a wall. Emotionally, mentally. I closed my laptop, turned off the light, and sat in the dark for a long time, just listening to the hum of the AC and the muffled footsteps from the hallway. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just went still. I felt empty, like the past few years had hollowed me out from the inside, and all that was left was the shell of someone who used to believe that trying harder would make people love him more. It didn't. That was my rock bottom. And then, weirdly, things started to shift. It began small. One night, I stayed late in the campus library, not for a class or assignment, but just to breathe. I liked the quiet there. The way the fluorescent lights buzzed above the rows of books. It was the only place where I didn't feel watched, judged, compared. I started reading for fun again. Not textbooks, not articles, books. Real ones. Stories about people who ran away, who started over, who built something out of nothing. I devoured memoirs from self-made entrepreneurs, novels about underdogs, guides about passive income, and building digital businesses from scratch. And for the first time in a long while, my mind started turning again. See, what I hadn't told anyone, not even my closest friend James, was that while my family had been busy dismissing me, I'd been busy learning. Late nights after school, I taught myself everything I could about design, digital marketing, and branding. I watched free YouTube tutorials, audited online courses, read subreddits, and followed startup forums. I had folders full of mock branding kits, mood boards, font pairings, color psychology breakdowns. I wasn't just playing around. I had been training. All through senior year, while Kayla was throwing tantrums about follower counts and faking sponsorships, I had quietly built a portfolio. Anonymous. Clean. No last name. No face. Just work. I'd started posting on Fiverr and Behance under the handle NVRND, short for Never End, a private reminder to myself that I'd never let my story end where they wanted it to. I only got a few nibbles back then. A logo here, a podcast cover there. But the feedback was glowing. Clients started coming back. Referrals trickled in. And now that I was on my own, with nobody breathing down my neck, I decided to go all in. I upgraded to a full freelance profile, rebuilt my site, started waking up 2 hours early to work before class, and staying up 2 hours late to finish client projects. I took photos of the campus to use in mock-ups, created templates, started building passive income kits, brand strategy guides, Instagram carousel packs, digital planners. I listed them on Gumroad under my handle. And slowly, something wild started happening. Money. Not a ton, at first. A few bucks here and there. Then $20. Then $50. Then a week where I made $300 from just digital downloads. I reinvested it all, got better tools, paid for ad space, automated parts of my workflow. I even designed my own custom planner just for freelancers and sold it as a secret weapon for creators. By December, I was making enough to cover food and books without touching the scholarship. By March, I was making more than my mom. And no one had a clue. It was intoxicating. Not the money, the freedom. The knowledge that I had created something completely separate from my family's narrative. I didn't need their praise, their validation, their permission. I was writing my own story now. I stopped checking Kayla's Instagram. I muted my mom's texts. I let the distance grow. And in that space, I found parts of myself I didn't even know were missing. Dev and I actually became friends. Real friends. After a late-night ramen run turned into a 4-hour conversation about how both of our parents treated us like backups for someone else. We started working out together, trading playlists, helping each other prep for interviews. He started calling me the machine because of how disciplined I was. I told him about the freelance stuff eventually, and he was the first person to say, "Dude, you're going to be a beast at this. You just wait." He was right. By the end of freshman year, I'd landed 3 long-term clients, built a 5-star profile, and had a waiting list of small brands asking for help. My planner had sold over 800 copies. I was invited to speak on a student entrepreneurship panel. I even got offered a paid summer internship at a startup in New York, fully remote, flexible hours, great pay. I said yes. Then I called James. He nearly screamed through the phone. "I knew it. I knew you'd blow up." We spent 2 hours catching up, laughing about Kayla's birthday heist, and how I'd basically turned into some kind of quiet tech wizard. At the end of the call, he said, "You gonna tell your parents?" I paused, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. "No," I said, "not yet," because I had a plan, and it required silence. See, I knew something they didn't. Something no one in my family had bothered to ask about during that entire year of radio silence. Kayla had a project due for one of her personal branding classes, a final, something that would count for nearly half her grade, and it involved launching a small digital brand, complete with a logo, website, and mock social campaign. How did I know? She'd accidentally emailed the prompt to me instead of her professor, and it gave me an idea, one that would expose everything, one that would force them, all of them, to finally see me not just as the kid they ignored, but as the storm that had been quietly building in the background. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The revenge part? That's next. And when I say it shattered everything they thought they knew, I mean it broke the entire facade beyond repair. Let me tell you how I set it all in motion. It was a Tuesday when Kayla's email dropped into my inbox. Subject line: "Tyler, can you look at this?" LOL, I'm stuck. At first, I was confused. We hadn't spoken in months. Her number was still muted on my phone, her name buried beneath a pile of missed messages and half-written replies I never sent. I figured she was reaching out about something trivial. But when I opened the message, the full prompt for her final project stared back at me. Launch a personal brand identity for a fictional or real influencer concept. Must include logo, tagline, visual style guide, mood board, 3 social mockups, and a 1-page site preview. Due April 20th. No message. No explanation. Just that PDF and a Dropbox link to half-finished assets labeled Kayla Brand_final. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. This was her capstone, the final project for her program. The very degree she had kept bouncing around in for years, just now finally starting to complete. And for whatever reason, desperation, laziness, or sheer entitlement, she had turned to me. The brother she'd walked over. Dismissed. Replaced. The same brother whose room she stole, whose birthday she hijacked, whose future she tried to erase by taking up space that was never hers to begin with. And now she needed help? It would have been easy to delete the email. Ignore her. Let her flounder. That alone would have been a satisfying kind of revenge. But something about the way she wrote, "Tyler, can you look at this?" Like we were still on casual, emoji-level terms, it crawled under my skin. She hadn't changed. Not at all. She still thought I was hers to summon. Still thought I was the safe little brother who'd put his dreams on pause to fix hers. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I was someone else now, someone sharper, quieter, and more dangerous. And I realized this wasn't a favor request. This was an opportunity. So I got to work. The first thing I did was open her Dropbox folder. It was a disaster. Low-res mood board screenshots, a Canva logo with 4 different font styles, and a social media post that literally said, "You can't manifest dreams if you don't sleep pretty." I almost choked on my coffee. She had no concept of brand cohesion, no color palette, no target audience. The tagline changed every other slide. The whole thing felt like someone trying to repackage astrology memes into a TED Talk. But one file caught my attention, a voice note, just under a minute long. Curious, I played it. "Okay, so if you do look at this, Tyler, first of all, hey, miss you, Hope school's good. Anyway, I know you're better at this design stuff, and I just kind of need a pass, you know? It's not that serious, and you're, like, basically a pro. So if you can just clean it up, nothing crazy. Just make me look good. Love you. There was a soft giggle at the end. It hit me like a slap. Because that voice, casual, chirpy, shallow, was the sound I had grown up with. The soundtrack to years of being undermined, sidelined, and told to just help out, while she took the credit. And something in me clicked. I wasn't going to clean it up. I was going to light it up. But I needed to be strategic. This couldn't just be a petty sabotage. I wanted her to fall apart in real time, with everyone watching. Professors, classmates, our parents. I wanted her to come face to face with her own mediocrity, stripped of the safety net I'd unknowingly been weaving under her for years. So I started gathering intel. I dug through her old social media posts, class blogs, and even the digital portfolio she'd shared during a live stream in January. She had one thing going for her, a decent Instagram following. Mostly followers she'd racked up through influencer pods and giveaways. But it was enough to build an illusion of credibility. She had branded herself as a lifestyle vision coach, whatever that meant, with a focus on feminine energy, digital manifestation, and mindset clarity. All buzzwords. No substance. But it was perfect. I could work with this. I opened a new folder. Inside, I started building what would become my most ambitious project to date. A fully fleshed out influencer brand so convincing, so polished, and so absolutely off-brand for Kayla that she would be forced to present it without realizing it was a parody of herself. I called it K-Lab, Curate Your Chaos. The tagline? Because growth isn't about healing, it's about hiding it better. The mission statement was a masterpiece of satirical fluff, carefully engineered to sound just close enough to her usual nonsense that she wouldn't question it. At K-Lab, we believe the path to success is paved with aesthetic detachment and strategic emotional rebranding. Our content empowers women to monetize their breakdowns by turning every inconvenience into a story arc. I designed a logo that looked like a luxury lipstick brand trying to launch a cult. 3 vertical lines for K, an abstract B looped into the negative space, and soft, whispery colors like rose ash, dust lilac, and liminal beige. I used serif fonts with handwritten overlays to make everything feel personal yet exclusive. Then I built 3 mock posts for her social campaign. A fake quote post. Sometimes the best way to grow is to ignore the consequences. Hashtag healing is a scam, a product shot for an imaginary candle line called Mood Monet. Scents include overshare, rose plus disappointment, ghosted gracefully, citrus plus apology energy, and spiral softly, lavender plus regret. A teaser reel for her upcoming webinar. Level up without changing. A free masterclass for women who want success without accountability. I packaged it all into a glossy pitch deck, complete with graphs about emotional ROI, charts showing brand relatability growth, and a 1-page website mock-up linking to nowhere. Then I watermarked everything with her name and a fake date stamp. The piece de resistance? I added a disclaimer at the very end in tiny white text on a pale pink background. This brand concept was developed using recycled delusion and borrowed aesthetic. Any resemblance to competence is purely coincidental. I sent it to her 3 days before her deadline. No message, no context, just the files. And she used them. Every single one. How do I know? Because I created a fake class forum account under the alias Carly, complete with a profile pic from a royalty-free headshot site. I used it to watch her upload the project. She raved in the description about how this concept really captures my new direction and feels like such an authentic expression of my voice. The comments from her classmates were mixed. Some were clearly confused. One said, "This is bold LOL. Are the candles real?" Another asked, "What does emotional ROI mean?" Genuinely curious. But Kayla? She was riding high. So high, in fact, that she invited my parents to attend the final project showcase. A livestream presentation where the top students would pitch their brand ideas to a panel of professors and potential mentors. She thought she was going to own that stage. She thought this would be her big comeback, her chance to prove she was the star of the family again, to show our parents that she was the one destined for success, not the quiet brother who disappeared to college and barely texted back. She had no idea that she was about to walk into her own roast, delivered by herself. And me? I'd be watching from the front row. Because what I hadn't told anyone, not even Dev or James, was that I had signed up for a summer student panel at the same university, one town over from her college, and my design studio, NVRND, had just been invited to participate in the exact same livestream showcase as a guest commentator. And when I saw my name on the guest list, let's just say, the final piece had clicked into place. All I had to do now was wait for the curtain to rise. Because when it did, Kayla wouldn't just stumble. She would fall spectacularly. And this time, everyone would be watching. The morning of the livestream showcase, I woke up without an alarm. No racing heart. No last-minute nerves. Just calm. It had been a year since my birthday had been hijacked, a year since I realized my place in the family wasn't earned. It was assigned. But today, I wasn't the background character anymore. I dressed with care, plain black shirt, rolled sleeves, clean jeans, laptop in my backpack, and my presentation saved on a flash drive I could hold like a weapon. I even wore the hoodie Kayla had stolen from me last summer, the one she'd tossed across the room like it meant nothing. This time, it was armor. The showcase was hosted in a glass-paneled event hall at a local university where Kayla was wrapping up her degree. NVRND, my freelance brand, had been invited as a rising talent in student-founded design studios. Technically, I wasn't a student there, but one of my long-term clients was on their mentorship board, and he had slipped my name into the lineup. Funny how the kid they'd once ignored had now become someone worth collaborating with. I arrived early. The lobby buzzed with nervous students holding iPads and foam boards. Professors paced the rows of seats, whispering to one another. The event was being live-streamed to over 200 people, including faculty, alumni, potential employers, and families of the presenters. I spotted Kayla instantly. She was in the center of it all, laughing too loudly in a peach blazer and high-waisted trousers that screamed, aspiring CEO. Our parents stood beside her, dressed for a wedding. Dad in a pressed button-down, Mom in her presentation pearls. I noticed, with no small amount of satisfaction, that neither of them had noticed me walk past. The irony was intoxicating. They were here to support their daughter, finally proud of her vision. They had no idea the brand she was about to pitch was a satirical trap of her own vanity. No idea that the designer behind it, the one they hadn't bothered to call in months, was sitting 15 feet away. A staff member brought me backstage and introduced me to the panel. I smiled, shook hands, and took my seat at the end of the commentator table with a mic and notepad. We'd each be giving feedback after the student pitches, just like on a panel show. Polite, constructive, and ideally, insightful. When Kayla's name was called, the room dimmed. Her brand concept was projected onto the screen behind her. Kaylab, curate your chaos. She took the stage with the confidence of someone who'd never heard the word accountability. I could almost hear her internal monologue. This is it. My moment. Hi everyone. I'm Kayla, and I'm so excited to share my personal branding project with you today. My concept is about embracing imperfections, transforming emotional challenges into content currency, and creating a lifestyle that's both raw and aspirational. She clicked the remote. The first slide popped up, a glowing logo, elegant lines, pastel background. Kaylab is built for the modern woman who's done pretending she's healing and just wants to monetize the mess. There were a few chuckles, nervous ones. She beamed, thinking it was admiration. She kept going. Here are 3 sample posts for the campaign launch. The audience watched as the slides cycled. Sometimes the best way to grow is to ignore the consequences. Hashtag healing is a scam. Mood Monet, sense include. Overshare, ghosted gracefully, and spiral softly. Join my free masterclass, Level Up Without Changing, for women who want success without accountability. More laughter now, except it wasn't admiration anymore. It was confusion, disbelief, a ripple of what am I looking at, running through the rows of professionals and parents. Mom's face had frozen in a weird half-smile. Dad stared straight ahead, blinking. Kayla didn't notice. Now, here's a look at the mock website. You'll see brand pillars like emotional ROI, aesthetic avoidance, and weaponized softness. She paused. The screen glitched slightly, then returned. I saw it before she did. That tiny, pale pink disclaimer, the one she hadn't read, buried on the final slide. This brand concept was developed using recycled delusion and borrowed aesthetic. Any resemblance to competence is purely coincidental. Someone in the back snorted. Then came the silence. A professor leaned toward his mic. Kayla, I'd like to ask, did you develop this concept yourself? Her smile faltered. Yeah, of course. You wrote the tagline and developed the visuals? Yes, all me. I flipped on my mic. I actually have a quick question, if that's all right. Her head jerked toward the panel, eyes narrowing. She hadn't noticed me until that moment. And when she did, really saw me, seated behind the commentator nameplate that read Tyler M., founder, NVR&D Design, her mouth opened just slightly. I didn't wait for her to speak. I'm fascinated by your brand pillars. Aesthetic detachment and emotional rebranding. Could you define those for us? She stammered. Well, it's like detaching from external expectations and, reclaiming emotions through storytelling. For content. I nodded slowly. So essentially, packaging vulnerability as a product? Yes, she said quickly, relieved. Exactly. Even if the vulnerability isn't real? She blinked. What? I gestured at the screen. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but this entire concept hinges on the idea of exploiting personal flaws for engagement, not growth, not healing. Just aesthetic repackaging. She faltered. Well, that's a little. It's a metaphor. Except it's not, I replied gently. It's a mirror. The room had gone dead quiet. Your presentation is a satirical echo of influencer culture. It's almost too perfect. Like someone designed it to expose exactly how shallow this space can be. Almost like it was made on purpose. A professor leaned in again. Kayla, can you walk us through your process for creating this? She was pale now. Her voice cracked. I collaborated. A little. With who? She looked right at me. I think I misunderstood the tone. I didn't realize what? Another panelist asked. I leaned back in my chair. She couldn't answer. Because the truth was written all over her face. She hadn't made any of it. Not the deck. Not the strategy. Not the site mock-ups. She had handed me her future, trusting I'd protect it. And I turned it into a weapon. Someone coughed. A chair creaked. Then the lead professor spoke. Kayla, we're going to pause here. Thank you for your presentation. She stood frozen, blinking rapidly, then walked off the stage like a sleepwalker. Our parents stood halfway, then sat back down when she passed them without a glance. The rest of the showcase blurred together. I gave my panel comments calmly, praised 2 excellent branding concepts, and closed my segment by encouraging students to know the line between self-expression and self-exploitation. Afterward, I left through the side door. But before I could disappear completely, someone grabbed my shoulder. It was my mom. Her voice was low, tight. Was that really necessary? I looked her in the eye for the first time in a year. I was invited to speak, I said evenly. I gave honest feedback. She was humiliated. She humiliated herself. I just held up the mirror. My dad stood behind her, arms folded, watching but silent. Mom pressed on. You've always been so good, Tyler. Why would you do this to her? I smiled. Not cruelly, just sadly. I didn't do this to her, I said. I did it for me. And I walked away. I never looked back. Kayla failed the course. Her graduation was delayed. Her followers dropped after screenshots of her satire brand presentation made their way to a few influencer call-out pages. She blamed me, of course. Texted me once. You ruined everything. I didn't reply. But the funny thing is, she eventually got over it. Not right away, but months later, she started posting raw, real content about learning to rebuild after being publicly humbled. She spun her failure into an origin story, turned the satire into a rebrand, and launched an Etsy store selling healing kits. It was almost impressive. Meanwhile, I kept building. By the time I hit 20, NVR&D had a full client roster, a digital product line, and a passive income stream that tripled my old college scholarship. I moved to New York, got a minimalist apartment with concrete walls and giant windows, and stopped checking family group chats altogether. But sometimes, late at night, I'll scroll back to that email she sent me. Tyler, can you look at this? LOL, I'm stuck. And I think, yeah, you were. But I wasn't. Not anymore. Because the moment I stopped asking to be seen was the moment I finally was.